Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about interval notation. So this is a new topic, but it builds on stuff you've learned in Algebra 1. So just to give you an example of why we would use interval notation, let's say you go and apply for a job and the person hiring you says your starting salary is anywhere between say $8 an hour and $21 an hour based on your experience. Okay? So that entire math sentence can be summarized with an inequality in math notation. Okay, so today we're kind of going to be expressing things in three different forms. We're going to talk about inequality notation first. So the way we would express this, let's say your salary, use the variable s. So we would say that s is in between two numbers. It's bigger than one number, but less than another number. We would say that s is greater than $8, but less than $21. Now remember, when you say this in English that your salary is between $8 and $21, it really means it includes those numbers. So we need to make sure that we write greater than or equal to, sorry, this is less than or equal to, and also less than or equal to. So your starting salary is between $8 and $21. So this here is basically how we would write that in math notation, okay, using inequality notation. Now we can express the same idea using a graph. So using a graph here, if we wanted to graph your possible salary, your starting salary, we would put 0 in, count over 8 units, I'm just estimating here, count over to 21. And if we wanted to graph the solution, since your salary can be anywhere between 8 and 21, we are going to actually shade this area between 8 and 21. Now the question is, since it can include $8, we can either do an open bubble or a filled-in bubble at 8. Because it can include $8, we're going to use a filled-in bubble at 8. And because you could earn $21, instead of doing an open circle like this, we're actually going to do a filled-in circle because $8 and $21 are true possible salaries. And again, we shaded all the numbers in between because you might earn any salary in between that. So you might earn, say, $17 an hour. 17 is a possible salary. So all the numbers that are shaded include the possible starting salaries that you can make at the job. The new thing that we're going to take a look at today is interval notation, this here. So how do we express this same idea using interval notation? So interval notation, as you can see, here's an example. When we use interval notation, we either use brackets or parentheses. And it's always the lower number on the left, the smaller number. It's always the lower number, comma, the larger number. Okay? And then we either use parentheses or brackets. It just depends on if that number is included or not included. So in this case, brackets, and actually always brackets means that the last number on the right, to the right of the comma, is included. If you see parentheses next to the number, that would mean that it is not included. Okay? So I'm going to erase this so I have space to write, but make sure you have that down. Okay. If we express our salary using interval notation, again, our salary is between $8 and $21. It's going to be the smaller number 8, comma, the larger number 21. And since you could earn both these salaries, we're going to use brackets because that means we're including the number 8, and bracket to the right of the 21 means we include the number 21. So again, brackets means the number is included. And parentheses means the number is not included. That means that all numbers up until 21 if we had used brackets. Okay, so essentially we've shown you the 3 ways to express the same truth, the same range of values or interval of values. So let's take a look at some problems here, at some examples. So in each one of these examples, one of the items are given and we have to fill in the other 2. So in this one, the column on the left is filled out and we need to figure out how to express it in the other 2 ways. Okay, so what this says here is that all numbers from negative infinity until negative 8 are included. So again, if we want to show this on the number line, negative infinity would be represented all the way on the left of the number line. Okay, and negative 8 is just going to be to the left of 0, 8 units to the left of 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So negative 8. And again, we have a bracket here, so that means we include the number 8. That means 8 is included. So we're actually going to fill in the bubble at negative 8. And because it's all the numbers in between there, we want to shade everything to the left of negative 8 since we're going from negative infinity until negative 8. And remember, in this interval notation, it's always the smaller goes on the left and the larger goes on the right. Okay, so we've expressed that inequality in a graph. Lastly, we're going to do inequality notation. So with inequality notation, we use the variable x because this is the number line going left and right. So we think of that as our x variable. So again, we're saying all numbers less than negative 8 are graphed here. So if we look at this graph, all numbers less than negative 8, including negative 8, are graphed. So we would say that x has a relationship to negative 8. And the question is, it's all the numbers that are less than or equal to negative 8. When there's just one variable and it goes to infinity, we always write the x on the left, followed by the inequality symbol, in this case less than or equal to negative 8. And again, why did we choose less than or equal to? Why is there that equal to sign? Because negative 8 is filled in and because we have a bracket for negative 8. So this here is inequality notation, like the kind you saw in Algebra 1. Now I want you to pause the video and try the second one. See if you can do the second one on your own. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at the second one here. Here in interval notation, we say the interval goes from negative 10 to infinity. So interval notation is given to us. Let's see about solving this problem right here. And again, we're going from negative 10, so we got to count 10 units to the left of 0 because it's negative, starting at negative 10. And we want to label positive infinity, which is on the right side of the number line. And again, it says all values, including negative 10, because of the bracket. So that means we have a filled in bubble at negative 10, all the way until infinity. So that means we have to shade the number line on the right all the way to infinity. And what we do is we shade the arrow as well. We shade the arrow as well. Okay. If we express that in interval notation, here we're going to say that x is greater than or equal to negative 10, because we're saying all values that are larger than negative 10 to the right of negative 10 work. Okay, so that's how we would do number 2. Let's take a look at number 3. And some of these are going to be a little more advanced than the course that we're taking, but let's take a look at number 3. I think we're going to skip this one right now. But for number 3, we have x is greater than 8. So for x larger than 8, we're going to count to the, notice this is the given inequality here. We're going to be creating a graph and writing that same inequality in interval notation. So first thing is, we read this inequality and we say x is all values larger than 8. So we got to find 8 on the number line. So we're going to count to the right of 0, 8 units right here. 8 units to the right. And because it's greater than, it's an open circle. So we put an open circle at 8. And the values that are larger than 8 are to the right of 8. That's where our values get bigger. So we're actually going to shade the number line to the right and shade the arrow as well. And you can see all the way on the right here, if we shade to the right, we're actually shading towards positive infinity. We're shading towards positive infinity. Well, that helps us write our interval notation, because remember, interval notation has a comma. And if we look at the smaller value, on the left, the smaller value is 8. So our smaller value is 8. And we're shading all the way to infinity, so that goes on the right, positive infinity. And because it's an open circle, that means we're using parentheses, because parentheses means not included. So we actually do open parentheses. And with infinity, we always use parentheses, because infinity is not a value. It's actually a symbol for an ever-increasing quantity. It's not an actual number. So you can't actually ever get to infinity. And so we use the parentheses because infinity cannot be included since it's not an actual value. Okay, why don't you try the next one on your own? Pause the video, try it, and see what you get. Welcome back. All right, let's take a look at number 4. In this case, we start with the given problem. X is less than or equal to negative 2. X is less than or equal to negative 2. So if we want to graph that, we find negative 2 on the number line and label it. And it's less than or equal to, so we have a filled in bubble here. And it says all the values that are less than negative 2. Well, numbers get smaller as we go to the left. So that means we're going to be shading to the left here. All the values that are less than negative 2. We want to shade the arrow as well to show that we keep shading to the left. And again, on this side, on the left side of the number line, we find we're starting to approach negative infinity. And so if we want to express this graph in interval notation, remember the smaller value goes on the left side of the comma. So negative infinity is a smaller value. 2, which is the other end of the shaded region, goes to the right of the comma because it's bigger than negative infinity. And we have to just decide if we use parentheses or brackets. Because 2 is filled in, we use a bracket because 2 is included. This bubble here is filled in. Now with negative infinity, we said we always use parentheses because it's not an actual number. Okay, let's move down, take a look at a couple more examples. I think maybe we'll just do, maybe we'll do these two right here. We'll do 6 and 7. And then you can try some in the homework on your own. These are a little more complicated examples, but for this interval here that's graphed, we actually want to do interval notation and inequality notation. So the first thing is we have to figure out the endpoints of the graph. So I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit so we can see it better. At -3, it's an open circle. And at 5, it's a filled in circle. So that helps us with parentheses or brackets. So again, the first thing is the smaller number goes on the left. So the shaded region starts at -3. The shaded region ends at +5. Because +5 is bigger, it goes on the right side of the comma. And because +5 is a filled in bubble, we use a bracket. Because -3 is not included and it's an open bubble, we use parentheses. Okay, so that is essentially our inequality for, our interval notation for this graph. Now, if we want to write it in inequality notation, that's on the right here. It's on the right. Again, we say that x, all x values, are between two numbers. So our x values are going to be bigger than some number, but less than another number. In other words, x is in between two values. The smaller number is -3, the larger number is 5, and we could say that x is greater than -3 and less than +5. And that's those two answers for 6. Number 7. This is the last one we'll do today. Thanks for sticking with us. Again, we're given the graph and we want to write it in interval notation. First thing is we see that we have an open bubble here. And we see on the left side, as the arrow goes toward the left, we get closer and closer to -infinity. Here we have an open circle, meaning 4 is not included. And as we go toward the right, we go towards +infinity. So this, we actually need two interval notation pieces to represent this graph. So on the left side, on this left-hand portion right here, we would say that the interval that represents that is from -infinity. Make sure you don't write -8 because the arrow is going to the right. Comma, this interval ends at -4. And because it's -infinity, we need parentheses. And because it's -4, but an open circle, we need parentheses. Now, for the right-hand portion right here where it's shaded, we're going to express that with an interval as well. And that interval will go from 4, the smaller number, comma, infinity, the larger number. And because 4 is an open circle, we used a parentheses there. And because it's infinity, we also use parentheses. Now, if we want to express this in inequality notation, we essentially are going to write two inequalities to do this, because x is in between any two values. So we're actually going to say that x is less than -4. That's one of the inequalities. Let me write that in red, since that's the one on the left. So this one on the left right here is going to be x is less than -4, because we're shading all the values to the left of -4. And the inequality on the right is x is greater than, or all the numbers to the right of, bigger than, +4. And then for this to be correct, we're going to write or to make sure we include both intervals of the graph. So thanks for watching today. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. Have a great day.